Today is Thanksgiving in America, and you know what that means. Eating way too much food, watching way too much football, and my annual predictions for the theme park world. I'm gonna blow the dust off my crystal ball and tell you all with absolute uncertainty what will happen this year. Also, I gotta hold myself accountable for last year's picks, so we'll take a look at those too. I want to tell you what coaster will be the first to open, which coaster will open way too late to the point of embarrassment, what coaster will be the sleeper hit, who will win all the major golden ticket awards, which coasters will close down, which parks will announce a new coaster, and end with a bold prediction. These are my 2024 theme park predictions. First, my picks from last year. I said the first coaster to open would be Air Force One at Fun Spot Atlanta. It was delayed a year, it was already finished, and being in the South, they get an early start in their season. I also acknowledged some Middle East coasters may open first, and Mission Ferrari opened at Ferrari World on January 12th. The real winner of this race was Gold Mine Train in China, opening January 7th. As for America, I was close. Air Force One opened on March 31st, but to my absolute surprise, Aquaman Powerwave opened at Six Flags Over Texas on March 11th. I didn't think they'd open a water coaster before Memorial Day, but they did. I rode it this year, it doesn't get you that wet. For the coaster to open way too late, I said Circuit Breaker at Codaland. It wasn't long after this that we heard that Codaland wouldn't even be ready until 2024, so I guess that was kind of right. All-American Triple Loop at Indiana Beach had the same fate. That's been pushed for a couple years now. All three Six Flags Kids coasters opened very late in the season, but it makes sense. I think they were all bought during IAAPA, so they got a late start. I think the true answer to this question is Primordial at Lagoon. Some pass holders were even getting mad that they promoted Primordial to sell season passes, and they barely got to open on September 15th, just a month and a half before the park closed for the season. The park gave pass holders some ERT to make up for it. For the sleeper hit, I mentioned Matugani at Lost Island. I got to ride that this year, and it was a lot of fun. Also, I thought Big Bear Mountain may be better than it was given credit for, especially because it was so long. But my official pick was Batman Gotham City Escape at Parque Warner Madrid. Those who rode it seemed to love it. To me, it seemed like a ride almost as good as Velocicoaster, but it wasn't getting the same hype. I don't think that was a bad pick, but this year, I think the true sleeper hit was Pipeline at SeaWorld Orlando. When this opened, people were raving about the surf trains, giving some airtime that was indescribable, something they had never felt before, and it changed my whole perception about the future of the surf coaster. I didn't get to ride it, but the reactions really surprised me. For the Golden Ticket Awards, I said Air Force One and Tron would be in the mix, but I chose Batman Gotham City Escape. I know that GTAs are very American-centric, but I thought this may transcend that. Well, it didn't, and Air Force One got the honor. After riding Air Force myself, I can't say I disagree. It's one of the best coasters in the country. For Best Steel Coaster, I said Fury was going to win again, and it did. But to avoid being boring, I had a secondary sleeper pick. That was Steel Vengeance, and that got fourth. For Wood, I said it would be Phoenix once again, and of course it won. But my sleeper pick was El Toro. I thought maybe if it came back from its retrack and it was running amazing, it could overtake number one. Turns out, it came back rougher and it finished third. For Best Park, I figured Europa would retain its prize, but my sleeper pick was Cedar Point. Opening the boardwalk may have pushed it over the edge. To my shock, it was neither. Dollywood took the award. I guess I shouldn't have been too shocked. Dollywood did host the awards this year. For ride closures, I took Six Flags off the board. At the time, we still thought Celine Bassoul didn't want to add any new coasters, so I figured they wouldn't take anything out. Well, he had a change of heart, and Great Escape is adding a new coaster at the expense of Alpine Bobsled. I also said Possess could be scrapped if Dorney Park got that wooden coaster they were supposed to get before. Turns out, they got a B&M dive instead, and Possess didn't have to be removed to make it happen. I heard that Arkansas Twister was down a lot in 2022, and I thought it may be on its last leg, but that didn't amount to anything. I did mention T3 as an option, and that did happen. On April 27th, Kentucky Kingdom made this official. Finally, I said Hurler may close down at Carowinds. That didn't happen. So in addition to Alpine Bobsled and T3, we also said goodbye to Flying School at Legoland, Florida, Sand Serpent at Busch Gardens, Tampa, Tidal Twister at SeaWorld San Diego, and Timberline Twister at Knott's Berry Farm. For parks that will announce a new coaster, I was pretty confident it would be Knott's this year, coming off those Giga Hyper rumors, but that didn't happen. They lost the coaster but didn't add one, plus all the rumors about Montezuma being scrapped, plus Accelerator being down almost the whole year. It wasn't a great year for Knott's. I also tagged Dorney Park for a new coaster. I thought it would be the wood coaster, but still, I got that one right when they announced the B&M dive coaster Iron Menace. I also thought Great Adventure could get a new coaster. Salim Basul said their 50th anniversary would be huge, and turns out that indeed meant a new coaster, the Flash Vertical Velocity. I thought Energylandia was a slam dunk for a new coaster, but they didn't open any of their coasters this year, and didn't announce anything else, obviously. I mentioned Alton Tower's Secret Weapon 9 being announced, but that didn't happen. SeaWorld is always a safe bet for a new coaster, and I picked Busch Gardens Tampa since all they got in 2023 was a Screamin' Swing. Sure enough, they announced Phoenix Rising. I figured Silver Dollar City was going to do something, related or unrelated to Fire in the Hole, and turns out they're closing their current Fire in the Hole and replacing it with a new Fire in the Hole, this one built by RMC. My last picks were Knoebels and Holiday World. They were both going on 9 years since their last coaster, and Holiday World did come through with good gravy, but Knoebels did not. Finally, my bold prediction was that a full Titan Track coaster would be announced, either something from the ground up, or an existing wooden coaster that would have 100% of its track replaced. That didn't happen. GCI didn't even announce a new coaster for 2024. They have some projects outstanding from this year in China, but as far as I can tell, those are mostly wood. That's it for last year's picks. Now, let's look ahead to next year. The first coaster to open in 2024 will once again almost for sure be in China or the Middle East. For America, I think it's going to come from one of the year-round Florida parks from the SeaWorld chain, Phoenix Rising at Busch Gardens Tampa or Penguin Trek at SeaWorld Orlando. Both of these are B&Ms. They're family-friendly, but Penguin Trek has a launch and over 1,000 more feet of track. It seems like that's a bigger project more prone to delays, so I'll take Phoenix Rising. The coaster to open way too late is always a fun pick. There's always that coaster that just never opens every year without fail. I gotta mention Circuit Breaker once again. Even if Codaland opens in 2024, this could have issues that cause a delay. However, Six Flags is back in the mix, and Bobcat at Great Escape is pretty straightforward. A family wooden coaster, what could go wrong? On the other hand, the new Intamin Ultra Surf at Six Flags Over Georgia, that has trouble written all over it. I don't think Aquaman's problems are related to this, but it's still an Intamin. It's a first of its kind, it's got a multi-pass launch, and it's still Six Flags. Because it's a water ride, they can't open it too late, but I can see it being delayed until maybe August. I think this is your best bet. The sleeper hit is always subjective, but I have 3 options. All-American Triple Loop at Indiana Beach is finally going to open next year, and I think the hype died down for this coaster. People raved about it when it was in Mexico, but that may have just been because they let it run too fast. That won't happen at Indiana Beach. Still, it could be one of the best coasters to open in 2024. There's also the Flash Vertical Velocity at Great Adventure. Ever since I saw the first one being built in China last year, I've been very impressed with the elements. This may be a lot more forceful than people think. My official pick for sleeper hit is Hot Wheels Twin Mill Racer, the Chance Hyper GTX coming to Mattel Adventure Park. We know this is going to have a launch. It'll have indoor and outdoor sections. It'll have at least 4 inversions, but there's still some mystery about the final layout. I dismiss this coaster as a glorified aero loop screw, but it may end up being a really awesome ride for this new park in Arizona. On to the Golden Ticket Awards, and for the first time in recent memory, there's not a great option for Best New Coaster. In America, 2024 is kinda weak when it comes to elite new rides, so I'm looking over to the UK for Hyperia, the Mach Hyper coming to Thorpe Park, but even more likely is Voltron at Europa Park. This is a Mach Ride Striker coaster, more than 4,500 feet of track, 7 inversions, a dark ride section, LSM lift hill, a multi-pass launch, a top hat, an awesome theme based on Nikolai Tesla's experiments. And since we know Europa Park has won a bunch of awards for Best Park, the voters aren't going to ignore this epic new coaster. For Best Steel Coaster, will Fury maintain its status at number 1? Yeah, probably. But if any coaster has the chance to top it, I'd say it's Velocicoaster. It's moved from 18 to 5 to 3. Maybe the next step is to grab number 1. For Best Wood, I'm not picking anything other than Phoenix. Voyage is behind it, but didn't do anything to push itself over the top. El Toro was 3rd, and apparently that got worse. Then you got Thunderhead, Boulder Dash, and Beast at 4, 5, 6. Those aren't new and rising the way Velocicoaster is, and nothing's gonna propel them any higher. It's gotta be Phoenix. As for Best Park, this time I had to check to see who was hosting in 2024. That would be Kennywood. I can't imagine Kennywood taking the award the way Dollywood did when they hosted it. And with Voltron coming to Europa Park, I think that regains the top spot. Now for closures, and this one always seems so random it's hard to pinpoint. My first pick is Time Warp at Canada's Wonderland. That was closed on my visit, and I'm not sure how much it's been up this year. It's a terrible ride and doesn't belong at a park like this, so its days seem to be numbered. 2024 could be its last year. I've said it before, but I keep coming back to it. I just can't imagine Carowinds keeping Hurler that much longer. With the park maybe due for a new coaster soon, this may be axed. Kind of a random one. Let's go with Sidewinder at Elitch Gardens. I guess it's not open that much. And like we saw with Alpine Bobsled, rides that rarely open don't have much of a future at their park. Also, flashback at Six Flags New England. Like Carowinds, this park may be due for something new, and this relocated boomerang may be expendable. As for Demon at Six Flags Great America, I think it may be done soon, but I'm willing to bet it's got at least one more year. Go out after its 50th season. Then, it'll be replaced with a new coaster for the park's 50th anniversary. If it's still around next Thanksgiving, I'll for sure list it as the next one to go. Now for new coaster announcements, and this just got a whole lot more complicated with the Six Flags Cedar Fair merger. How new additions will be handled, how they'll be dispersed, who's going to be the winners and the losers, we just don't know. I'm targeting 2 Six Flags parks and 2 Cedar Fair parks. I think Six Flags New England will get something on the old Goliath plot, or maybe the vacated flashback spot if my last prediction comes true. I also think Six Flags America might get something. I think those Kid Flash coasters are going to spread throughout the chain, and I can see them getting one. Maybe a few parks get one. For Cedar Fair, I think Knott's does announce something this year to replace Timberline Twister. Maybe they get a Kid Flash. Maybe they get an RMC Wild Moose. I think they have to add something that's kid-friendly. I also think Carowinds announces a new coaster alongside the removal of Hurler. When it comes to big Cedar Fair parks, Cedar Point got a new coaster this year, so did Canada's Wonderland. Kings Island is getting one next year, so it's Carowinds' turn, even if it turns out to be a family coaster. I do have a bonus Cedar Fair park, Kings Dominion. 2025 is their 50th anniversary. They have that big gaping plot of land where Volcano used to be. It's the perfect opportunity to replace it. Let's look at some other parks celebrating their 50th. Busch Gardens Williamsburg could very well get something 2 years after Dark Coaster. Europa is getting their big addition for 2024, so I bet they chill in 2025. Keep your eye on Farouk Summerland in Denmark, also Gardaland in Italy, and Wallaby Belgium. I think they have a shot at a new coaster 4 years after opening Conda. You always have to account for Energylandia, but I doubt they'll announce anything new for 2025. They already have their tilt coaster slated for that year. Also, don't forget about SeaWorld. Maybe Orlando takes a year off, same with Tampa. I mentioned Williamsburg being a possibility on their anniversary, and I would not be surprised to see a new coaster come to San Diego or San Antonio. Also, more of a long shot, keep your eye on Knoebels in Hershey Park. They may pop up with an announcement. Finally, my bold prediction. By Thanksgiving next year, at least one park that's currently in the Six Flags or Cedar Fair chain will either be up for sale, announced to be shut down, or already under new ownership. I think small parks are in danger with this merger. I hope they can all stay open, even if they don't remain in the chain. I don't think it's a bold prediction to assume that over the next 3 years, but I do think it's a bold prediction to have it happen so fast. So there you go, let me know what you think, if you agree or disagree with any of my predictions, and if you have anything else to add, sound off in the comments below. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and if you want to see how bad these predictions turned out to be, give me a sub and come back next Thanksgiving for the final verdict. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.